Welcome inside the vault on a Wednesday. It's the 10th of December. I'm Bobby Trossett. This is my co-host and partner, Sarah Ellison. We're glad to be with you guys. It's brought to you by our friends at Primary Residential Mortgage. And being that it's a fresh new month, I know we're 10 days in, but we've only mentioned it a couple times now. There's a $100 Fanatics gift card that's out there for the taking. We will randomly give that away if you do the instructions properly at the end of the month to a random winner. So visit the show notes, visit the live chat as a pinned comment right now to learn more, and we'll tell you more about that at the halfway point of today's show. Right before we bring in a friend of the show and former Super Bowl winning Raven, Femi Ayambadejo, who is dropping back inside the vault in 25 minutes time. So there's that. But first, on the collective last night, as he always does, Sarah, Jeff Zrebiec, that is, of The Athletic, gives a great feel and a pulse for where this team is and potentially where this team could be going down the change route should this losing continue in the closing 4 weeks. So we'll have clips from last night, some takeaways on that side of things. Eric DeCosta's underwhelming guard signing. There's a player that was signed to the practice squad. There was a player that was released from the practice squad, and we're going to get into all of it and more. It's good to see you.
It's good to see you also. It would also be good, Bobby, to see a Ravens win this weekend, because what I'm going to do right now is pull up the New York Times playoff NFL simulator. And I'm doing this because I think we already know that this is a massive game. The last 2 weeks have been massive games. You lose this game and you're pretty much out for the count. Maybe not mathematically speaking, but practically speaking. And as you can see right here, the Ravens now chances to make the playoffs is 25%. If they win, as you can see here, it goes to 41%. But just as important is if we come down here, we got the Steelers game. If the Steelers win, puts the Ravens back down to 34%. If the Dolphins are able to win, then suddenly the Ravens are in a 50-50 spot. So it's not just that the Ravens need to win, but obviously it would be massive if the Dolphins could do something against the Steelers. And Bobby, I've played with this NFL simulator all morning. Let me tell you something. Nothing impacts this more, other than obviously the Ravens needing to win, especially their AFC games, their AFC North games, but also other games. But if we're talking about the Steelers' impact on things, the Ravens desperately need the Browns to pull off an upset. Let's see, what week is this going to be? There's Browns Bills, not that one. It might be week 17 here, right here. The Steelers win that Browns game, and it just has a huge impact on what the Ravens do. And so, we'll have to look down that kind of path once we get there. But the matter of the fact is like, if the Ravens were to lose this weekend, and then the Steelers win, we're just looking at practically no chance whatsoever. And so I bring this all up to say that the Ravens lose this weekend or continue to lose beyond that. Jeff on your show last night made it very clear. There's no way you can run this back, and massive changes would be coming down the pike. Did you want to say anything about the NFL simulator before we get Jeff on?
Let it rip. The only note I have is if it does end up, from a Cleveland standpoint, the Ravens relying heavily on a Browns win, they did name officially Shedeur Sanders their starter for the rest of the season. And he's been playing some good ball.
He's earned it.
Just throwing that out there.
He's earned it. All right. So this weekend's it. If this weekend is a loss, we're going to be talking a lot more about what Jeff brought up last night on your guys' show.
For you earlier on in the stream, Sammy wrote, Jeff, do you think John goes if this continues?
Wow. I made a couple calls on that front today. Obviously, I think that's just going to heat up. And I've said this before on the show and written it. Like, Steve Bisciotti doesn't play his cards to anybody. Like, only his innermost circle, and he's the only one that's going to decide that. I don't get the vibe that that's a foregone conclusion if they don't make the playoffs, but I do get the vibe that there will be massive changes. You cannot not have changes when you're a Super Bowl prohibitive, like one of the favorites, and you could be eliminated basically from the playoffs before, like in like week 15 or 16. You can't run that back. That you just can't. But how high will the changes go? Will it be the coordinators? Will it go as high as John? Will there be front office changes? Will there be a massive roster move? Man, I really don't know. I thought it was going to really have to get bad, and there's going to have to be some bad locker room splintering and some more embarrassing issues if John Harbaugh was going to lose his job. But man, losing 5 games at home, a couple no-shows, losing games in the division that you shouldn't, the entire, God, how many, the franchise quarterback regressing, that is as alarming as anything. Now, Lamar there are reasons for it, injuries and some of the supporting cast, but some of it's on him too. You can't have a franchise quarterback regressing at 28 years old. So Bisciotti's going to have to answer, Harbaugh's going to have to answer some hard questions. So is Bisciotti, so is DaCosta. It's not something I'm banking on like that I think is going to happen, but I'd be shocked if there weren't massive changes, if this there's not some miraculous turnaround here. I just don't know how high the changes are gonna go up. And I don't know how Steve's gonna react. I mean, like, you hear he's frustrated. He's a competitive guy. He's got to be pissed off. I mean, he has a great seat in M&T Bank Stadium. I'm sure he saw the rows of empty seats when the game started. I'm sure he sees and reads things, and you could mistake his leadership style, but it's not from it's not from he's not afraid to make tough decisions. You don't become a billionaire for being afraid to make tough decisions.
Bobby, you were with Jeff last night. What were kind of your thoughts as he talked about that he'd be shocked if there weren't massive changes? He's saying at least coordinator changes, if not head coach. What say you?
Makes a lot of sense to me. It's just I'll believe it when I see it. And I think a lot of people feel that way within the fan base, knowing that this has been a repeated trend throughout the Lamar era. Never anything as disappointing as this, though, at this point in the season, aside from when Lamar was unavailable for them down the second half stretches, injury-wise, in 21 and 22. So, yeah, I mean, I'll believe it when I see it when it comes to Harbaugh. I guess the more likely approach, knowing that, it was just a report out leading into the weekend of Ravens Steelers as it relates to Mike Tomlin from the insiders, making it seem pretty clear that it's not going to be a firing there. It'll be because there's either a mutual parting of ways or Mike himself, Coach Tomlin himself, wants a different change of scenery. And I wonder if John's going to have the same type of autonomy or the same type of comfort and luxury of that, knowing that those two are in similar territory in terms of service time as the longest tenured coaches league-wide, respectively there. So I guess most likely, if I were to be a betting man right now, and if they aren't to make the playoffs and these struggles are to continue, Sarah, into December, into late December and into January, I'd probably, just based on organizational behavioral trends, I would probably lean more towards coordinators, positional coaches, that type of change. And obviously there's going to be plenty of change as well with all the pending free agents that are set to hit the market in March. But hey, who's to say? Who's to say? Because at this point, as you and I have talked about ad nauseum now for over a year, Lamar's not getting any younger. And regardless of whether you feel he's regressed this year or not, and there have been a multitude of reasons as to why that could very well be the case from a physical standpoint, first and foremost. And who's to say that he's not going to be back in MVP form after a full offseason and a full opportunity to get himself fully healthy? Even if all that's the case, change could still be the necessary evil to get them where they haven't been able to go throughout the Lamar era.
So one thing that I noticed that Jeff said that was kind of like, he kind of just slipped it in there, and it was close to when I, had that white transition between the two quotes. He says about Steve Bisciotti, he goes, "You hear he's frustrated." So, and in the beginning of the clip, he said, he made calls yesterday on this very topic of like John Harbaugh and his job security. And then later on, he says, you hear that Steve Bisciotti's frustrated. So that's the most we've gotten, which is not a lot. So you're kind of like grasping at straws here to know what Steve Bisciotti is thinking. So at the very least, Jeff has heard through his phone calls that Steve Bisciotti is frustrated, and he's noticed the crowds or the lack thereof at M&T Bank Stadium, prime time, Thanksgiving, all that kind of stuff. So he knows, and like Jeff said, he's you don't become a billionaire by like not making tough decisions. So I can still remember back when, and this is again, we're grasping at straws because we just didn't, nobody has access to Steve Bisciotti on a consistent basis. Nobody. And I just remember interviewing him back in 2018. And I asked him, I remember Peter King at the time thought that that John Harbaugh could maybe become like that Chuck Noll of the Ravens, 30 years with one organization. And I asked Steve that, and it was all good vibes at the time. And I remember Steve was like dead serious. He's like, well, we'll see. Like, wasn't like, hey, I'd love that. He's like, well, we'll see. I remember sitting up in his office because it is like he has to earn it. He could become Chuck Noll, but he also couldn't. And Steve Bisciotti wanted him to earn it. So I do think that Steve does know how to make tough decisions. And this is this decision in front of him. Let's say the Ravens don't make the playoffs. Let's go down that route. So then Steve has to ask himself, okay, we drastically underperformed, as Jeff said, from being a Super Bowl potential contender. Hey, they have one of the best rosters in the league, to being eliminated from the playoffs whenever it officially is, week 15, week 16 or whatnot. Okay, so then he has to ask himself, I believe that if I get Lamar Jackson healthy in an offseason, and if I get my GM to put some dollars and get a real offensive line behind him, we rebuild in the trenches on both sides. He probably knows what's going on with Nnamdi Madubuike, and so whether he'll be back or not, but we need to get tough in the trenches, and we're just going to put all this money out, and we're going to make sure that we have a pass rush. And yes, I'm going to make sure we get new coordinators. We love Zach Orr, but he just wasn't ready. We get a new defensive coordinator that can really get us back to Ravens defense. And then, Todd Monken's, he was great for, 2 years, but he's just run out. And then I'm also going to ignore that when things were going well, we still came up short in the playoffs in 2019, in 2023, in 2024. So I'm going to say, no, John's not the problem. And just if I do all of those things, I will be back in the playoffs and maybe contending for a Super Bowl. Or he can decide all of those things have to change anyway, and John Harbaugh is the final piece. Because to Jeff's point, massive changes do have to happen. All those things. Lamar has to get healthy. The offensive line has to be fixed. You need to have a legitimate pass rush. You need a coordinator that can bring you back to the Ravens standard. You need a play caller that's on the same page with his head coach, and we have to ignore all the playoff shortcomings. All those things have to happen with or without John. With or without John. So he has to decide, can John do that for me, or can somebody else do that for me? That's the decision that he's going to have to make.
That is a lot.
It's a lot.
A lot to consider. Obviously, this decision is not taken lightly. Earlier on in the stream, I mentioned that the messaging around Mike Tomlin leading into Ravens Steelers from the NFL insiders were that he wasn't going to get fired. Right? It would be his decision. It would be a mutual parting of ways. And everybody always says the same thing about he and John Harbaugh, right? What is it? It is these guys will have opportunities lining up at the door for them after they're which really is irrelevant to what the current situation is in those respective teams, right? Like who cares if these guys are going to have jobs lined up everywhere? We understand that. Nobody's questioning their ability. Nobody's questioning their resume. Nobody's questioning their experience. It's, has it run its course? And who's going to be the one between the two organizations to say, you know what? It's time to pull the plug, because change is the necessary evil to get us where we haven't been able to go. Pittsburgh hasn't been able to find a quarterback and win a playoff game since Ben Roethlisberger left. And they hadn't won a playoff game since well before he left, dating all the way back to 2016. For the Ravens, they haven't been able to get over the hump in the Lamar era. They've won more postseason games than the Steelers have, but which of these two storied franchises is going to look look at themselves from the top down under the microscope and say, you know what? I'm going to be the one. I'm going to be the one to embrace this change. It might not work immediately, but for the long run, I feel like this is the best way to not only get give Lamar, give somebody else a bite at the apple with a transcendent generational quarterback, but to keep this organization in line with what we've been for 30 years. And that's a group that competes, wins in the postseason, and is a standard contender year in and year out. Because right now they don't look like any of that.
No, and nobody in the AFC North does right now, which is why, I mean, you've brought up Mike Tomlin. I mean, you're just seeing more and more of it in the national media. Here's Frank Schwab of Yahoo Sports. He says, we kept talking about whether it was time for Mike Tomlin and the Steelers to part ways. What if the entire time we should have been having that same conversation about John Harbaugh? And then over on the Pat McAfee show, they presented statements to Bruce Arians, former head coach, and he would say, you know, BS or no BS. And the statement was, is the AFC North is going to have 3 new head coaches in it next year. Every single seat in the division is as hot as ever. And he said, yep, that's no BS. He feels like 3 are gone. And the one that wins the AFC North is the one that will save his job. And so it's definitely widespread where there's a problem. Now I want to kind of transition a little bit. Jeff had mentioned in that clip, he used the word that Lamar had regressed. Win or getting in the playoffs or out of the playoffs doesn't matter. Lamar Jackson and Eric DeCosta are going to have to meet up again because of his contract and the way that it is structured right now, which you can see right here, just to give a, you know, kind of a layout of it before we go back to Jeff and you talking more in depthly about Lamar. But next year in 2026, he is scheduled to have a $75 million cap hit. It can't stand if you want to have a serious, if you want to have a bounce back season, whether John's here, the coordinators are here, whatever happens with the pass rush, offensive line, all those other questions are still secondary to what happens with Lamar Jackson's contract. If it stays at $75 million, you're not going to fix the offensive line. You're not going to rebuild the trenches. You're not going to do any of those things. And obviously this is why it's even more frustrating that they didn't win a Super Bowl when he was on a rookie contract. That is true. But looking forward, something has to be done with that $75 million cap hit. And there's another $75 million cap hit in 2027. That's why an extension is necessary for both sides. The Ravens want to build around Lamar. I'm sure Lamar wants them to build around him. So an extension, new money, they're going to make him I'm sure they're going to offer to make him the highest paid quarterback again. But here's Jeff on that contract situation coming up this offseason.
It'll be a similar type of offseason when it comes to Eric and Lamar's dealings too, right? With the extension. That's just how they do it.
But what do you do, Bobby? I mean, like that's the thing that would concern me. It's just like I think a primary reason Lamar is not playing well is injuries. Like I do, but like how sure are you of that? Like honestly, because the older he gets, the more banged up he's going to get. He's only 28, but you're not going to get – he's not all of a sudden going to be, 24 again. Like it's going to be a challenge every year to stay ahead, and defenses are getting faster. Like somebody asked me today about Lamar because everyone's trying to get to the bottom of it. And right now he looks like a quarterback who's learning to play without his superpower. And his superpower is his athleticism and his elusiveness and his explosiveness. And that doesn't mean he can't do other things at a high level. He certainly can, but there's more of attention on those things. And Eric Weddle even alluded to it. Like, and he even said, Lamar playing more consistent is the most important thing for this team. And I agree with that. It's tough to win. And I'm not just saying it's on Lamar, but it's tough to win when your offense is making mistakes, not finishing drives. But I don't know what they do with the Lamar situation. Like, you can't have him back making $75 million cap space. Like, you can't build a great team, and you're not just going to let him go. And look, Bobby, he cares. Like he said, his frustrations through the roof. I was chasing down officials in the bowels of M&T Bank Stadium and trying to get him on the phone Sunday, so I didn't see the scene with my own eyes. but he's sitting in the corner of his locker, slumped, still in uniform, almost with tears in his eyes, with the head coach next to him. I mean, this is killing him. I'm sure it's hitting him hard. I'm sure if there's any silver lining here, and this will be stuff we can talk about going forward if the Ravens don't get back into this, it's you hope there was some epiphany between the Ravens and Lamar Jackson after this season. And I mean that, like, the communication between the two needs to be better. There's certain things that they need to change, how they go about things. I'm not saying things are bad there at all. I'm just saying, like, you need to kind of you need to take some good out of what's been a very bad situation, and make some changes in how things are kind of done and approached. And, and if there's any silver lining that comes out of this, you hope that both sides reach an epiphany that we can't go through this year again. We need to do everything in our power to do things a little differently and to try to turn things around, because there's no rebuilding here with this football team.
All right, Bobby. So there's one thing I want to push back on from Jeff's quotes there is, like, when he asked, obviously we're all on the same page, 75 million cap hit next year isn't doable if you want to put a legit team around Lamar. That being said, when he said, he believed that injuries were the primary reason why Lamar wasn't playing well. And then he said, but are you sure? And I would like to say, I am sure. Like, I am sure. Like, to me, again, you can, as Eric DaCosta would have to look at this as he has to approach the contract situation. He has to decide whether Lamar just straight up regressed, right? Or that he says, yeah, no, he played bad. He would have to say, no, it's not because of injuries. No, it's not because I have a subpar offensive line. No, it's not because Lamar Jackson was having to miss practices. No, it's not because of supporting cast dropping passes, this and there. And week 1 was a mirage. That was just a mirage. I'm gonna pretend that I didn't see how good Lamar looked week 1. And I'm also going to pretend and think that how he looked physically coming back against Pittsburgh, so much more physically capable. Like, he would have to say, yeah, week 1, I'm going to ignore his physical health returning against Pittsburgh and looking much better, although not back to his normal self yet, but the first game where he looked like Lamar again, like he could run. I'm going to pretend that all of those things are not the reasons and that Lamar just happened to regress. So I feel if I were the GM and I was in that spot, I'd feel fairly confident that Lamar hasn't been playing well because of all of those things: injuries, offensive line, missing practice, supporting cast. And then I am going to put stock into week 1. I am going to put stock into him physically returning against the Steelers. Like, yeah, no, I'm going to go forward into contract negotiations feeling pretty good that Lamar can get back to being Lamar. And I think Jeff ultimately came to that conclusion also, where he was talking about epiphanies and all that. But when he asked the question, are you sure those are the reasons? I feel pretty dang sure. That's
fine. I don't have any pushback there. I really want to see what Lamar does the final month of the season before we even have a potential debate around regression. If you're stacking him up against the 41-4 season, maybe a tad bit he did regress just naturally. Even if he did stay healthy, he might have regressed. That was a historical season that he put forth last year. You know what I mean? And that's why, one of the conversations in the predicting game that we did leading up to the season, I was like, I don't know if he's going to trump, I don't know if he's going to one up that. I had doubt about that. And then when you add in the physical setbacks that you just referenced, of course. So yeah, I'm not too receptive to the regression conversation yet. Really want to see how he handles this next month. But ultimately, everything that you outlined has been an uphill climb for him. So much so they're on the outside looking in right now of the postseason. So,
yeah. And just one last thing that he said in there I do think something is, like, he said that it's not bad between the quarterback and the organization, but he said that maybe there's an epiphany. It just sounds like their communication isn't great. Not bad, but not great. And so what he's basically saying is, could they get more on the same page communication style so they can build around Lamar? So again, not like they're enemies or bad communication, but maybe not as good as it could be.
Which is going to be vital going into this offseason for reasons that you've already discussed, that cap hit that Jeff also mentioned as well. And there's going to have to be an open line of communication, I would think, early and often once the offseason begins, because no negotiating is happening, obviously, in season. And that's Lamar's preference. Before we get some super chats in and our special guest who just popped into the waiting room, let's tell you a little bit about Primary Residential Mortgage. Did you know that refinancing your home loan can get you cash to finance your seasonal expenses? That is no strings attached money that you can use to do a bunch of different things. Finish home repairs in time for family to visit. Check all the big ticket items off of your gift list. You can pay the bills so your paycheck can go towards fun and festivities. Whatever you're looking to accomplish this holiday season, your home can help. We hope you'll consider reaching out to Primary Residential Mortgage, whether you're in the Baltimore area or not. There is a branch in the Towson. There's a location in the Towson area in Baltimore County. So just for those of you that are local to Baltimore, perhaps you swing by there and reach out to them. We also have a direct line to reach out to the Primary Residential Mortgage by phone that's included in the show notes. And you can get started if you'd like to apply now. They have a 203K loan that maybe you'll consider as well. All that can be found in the show notes. Shout out to Michael and Zach and Naz and Devin and George. They got a great team in the Towson area that I know I reach out to on a monthly basis to work on the messaging that we want to share with you guys. And also, I want to be a home buyer at some point here as well. So I'm keeping them close to the vest for sure. And then December, being that it is a new fresh month here, we do have that $100 Fanatics gift card giveaway that's up for grabs. And Sarah, as you can see here, people are already making sure that they enter themselves in. Slightly different instructions than previous months. All you have to do, click on the link that we have included in the show notes. If you're live, it's pinned right now in the live chat. Comment on this Primary Residential Mortgage post with the hashtag Vault and tag 3 friends that you'd buy a house with. That's 1. 2, follow them on Instagram at PRMI Mid-Atlantic. 3, subscribe to the Vault. You probably already do. Throw those notifications on. And if you want to take the extra step, because if you win, you'll be able to easily be reached. If this is the case, just scan the QR code or copy and paste this Google form link so you can throw down 30 seconds worth of your personal information so you can be reached out to. Let's get some super chats in here before we bring Femi on. And Holly got us started earlier on, and she says, heck it. Sarah for GM and Bobby for head coach. Let's go. I wonder how that would go.
Really be in trouble.
For everybody. Brandon is here with us.
He says regressing. He's been injured half the year. He was the top quarterback in the top of the season. Lamar talk is crazy.
Thanks, Holly. Thanks, Brandon. Cage is here, and he says, Cage Rattler. I love that name. Cage says, at this point, I would rather miss the playoffs instead of being humiliated with another one and done in the playoffs. Nightmare Kilo is with us today.
This is why when you are deciding to fire a coach, you do it no matter if a quarterback comes in and saves your job. All we did was prolong a problem 8 years, he says.
Another one from Cage. If I'm not mistaken, Eric DeCosta said our offensive line was a year away during the preseason. That was 2 years ago now that he made the comments of being, maybe all I remember is that going into the 24 season, he called it a straight up rebuild.
Mm-hmm.
He didn't say they were a year away going into this year.
Well, he said it was like a two-year kind of rebuild. I believe that was correct. Yeah.
VinaCat PR.
Vina says, Sarah, your red is your color. Blessings to you both. This season, the podcast has been elevated to a new standard of great. Let's hope Ravens can do the same. I'm feeling a lot of red during this Christmas season, a little red and green here and there.
Love it. Captain, and by the way, thanks, Vina, for those sentiments. Captain says, how can you think someone regressed when we literally seen him play MVP level before he got hurt? You don't regress in the same year. A lot of people pushing back on Jeff's commentary, but as you said, Sarah, he was more throwing that out there and not necessarily standing 10 toes down, if you will, on the regression comment. Encourage everybody to go check out those comments in full on last night's collective. Over 2,100 concurrents at the moment. It is 12:33 on Wednesday, December 10th. Week 15 of the NFL regular season has arrived. And in the waiting room is a guy who's got his shades on. I don't know what that means is coming up for the next 20 minutes, but something tells me it's going to be a good segment, as always, with former Super Bowl winning Raven, Femi Ayambadejo, who, at his request, has put together a rundown of topics that he wants to discuss. First and foremost being this Ravens loss, I should say, at the bank this past Sunday. So, and what a celebration it was for you and your 2000 team, man. How the heck was your weekend?
No, it was good, and the shades don't mean anything. I think I was on with shades with Sarah one day when you weren't on. So some days I rock them, some days I don't. So no, this isn't like some new persona I'm putting on for the show today. But the event was wild, man. I wish we could have won Sunday to kind of cap it off, but it's the first time all of us have been in the same room together. Obviously, a couple of my teammates have passed away. Some coaches have passed away along the way, which is sad. We represented them as best we could in spirit, having pictures and just videos around for the guys that obviously, like I said, had passed. But had a huge event at the Models on Friday, big event at the stadium Saturday. My brother, my nephew was there, which was awesome. My son got to participate. My girlfriend got to participate a little bit. And then Sunday, we're all at the bank. We do Ravens Walk, the band, the cheerleaders, the fans. Oh my God, dude. I got the hairs on the back of my neck were standing up a little bit because it's Bob. I don't know when we're going to be able to ever do that again. It's like, it's one of those things that in the moment, that like, hey, I may never do this again. And my brother's going to have his event and he'll probably let me tag along, but it's not the same. This was my event. His event is his event. And because of how close we are, we get to share that, which is pretty rare, being the only brothers in Ravens history to both have Super Bowl rings. So, and everyone's always kind of cool when he's around or I'm around. Like there's no one's tripping out. Oh, and by the way, we got to go to practice on Saturday. I got to talk to Teddy Buchanan. Oh my God, what an amazing kid. I got to talk to Marlon a little bit. I talked to Keaton in person that day, and I briefly talked to Coach Harbaugh, and obviously I saw Ozzie. I did talk to Steve Bisciotti on Saturday night, and Coach Billick. Yeah, I mean, it was a who's who, guys. Rex, I got to talk to Rex and Marvin. Yeah, dude, I mean, it's like an all-star team in there. So, yeah, it was pretty amazing, guys. Pretty amazing.
So glad you got that experience. I wish it could have been better with a win. And I know you kind of wanted to react to that game. That was kind of what was going on off the field with, former teammates and family and all that. So happy for you. But what was your take on the Steelers' loss?
Yeah, no, I think the Steelers game is a microcosm of the season. I thought that they did some pretty good things. They really outplayed the Steelers in the second half. I think the first half, you'll give it to Pittsburgh. I guess it was 17-3 at halftime. Obviously, you have the penalty that kind of led to some of that scoring, and they were a little bit out of sorts. But I think that on paper, when you look at the game, let's assume that half by half, I give the first half to the Steelers, the second half to the Ravens. The Ravens had the ball for 7 more minutes. They had almost 100 more yards. They had 8 or 9 more first downs. They were 7 for 18 on third down and 3 for 4 on fourth down. That's winning football. I know people don't realize it. And Bobby, you throw out third down quite a bit. If you convert more than 40% of your third downs, you're in the top 10 in football. Like this is a known fact over decades. Brian Billick always made this statistic a known thing. Like I'll give you an example. Chicago Bears right now have a 44.5% third down conversion rate. They're 5th in the NFL. So you don't need to be over 50% on third down. But I know that if you look at the game, you can say there was the Rashad Bateman drop. I think there was a ball to Derrick Henry that Lamar was one of those layups. So there was more conversions out there. But my point is that nobody plays perfect football. No team's going to go out there and play flawless. The team who makes the least amount of mistakes is going to win. And I think that statistically, the Ravens dominated the game. I think the two areas where we will say that Pittsburgh won is the Ravens lost the turnover battle. And I think there was one. Oh, they also lost the average per play battle. But I wouldn't say that's necessarily a statistic that bodes a win or not. The turnover ratio does. But I think for me, and this goes back to Jeff and Bobby, maybe you to some degree, and even Coach Coleman. Derek and I have talked. Derek and I are the same age. Derek and I can talk ball all day long. And through him being on your show and me being on your show, he and I have sidebarred numerous times. And can you imagine he and I in a conversation? We're supposed to have like a 10-minute conversation. It went 90 minutes, right? Like you guys would, X's and O's was bonkers between he and I. We have a lot of the same background in regard to how we analyze fronts, coverages, and protections. So one day we'll discuss that further. But I think what ends up happening is that we and Bobby, you're super professional about it because I know at the end of the day, your job, and I think Jeff's is too, is that you're trying to be objective. But I think that when teams constantly shoot themselves in the foot, which if you watch all 32 teams, they all do it at some point. But when you're 6-7, you've earned your record. So the Ravens have done it at a higher frequency this year than they have in the past. And it's almost like they no longer get the benefit of the doubt from the people that used to be objective about it. Now it's just like, hey, you got outplayed, you had a chance, and you didn't do this and you didn't do that. And where this leads to is two things. One, all of a sudden now Jeff has a question if Lamar's regression is related to his teammates or if it's him. It's absolutely not him. Like, I mean, the fact that he's even not sure, to me, the idea that he's floating the idea that at 28 years old, Lamar is not the same athlete that he was a couple years ago when we all have eyes. And to use your phrase that I know irritates people, I'm young enough, or is it I'm old enough? Is it I'm old enough to remember the Bills game? I'm old enough to remember what Lamar has done recently in recent history. I look at other comps and other quarterbacks that are his age or older that have bad moments, for whether it's them in regard to their health or whether it's their teammates. It's never really one thing. It's a culmination of things. To think that Lamar at 28, when I see my son's a track athlete, I watch athletes go PR in their mid-30s. I'm talking about guys running sub-10, which is unheard of 10, 15, 20 years ago, but they're doing it right now. Athletes have so many tools at their disposal. I am 10 toes down. This is not a Lamar losing his superpower thing. I'm 10 toes down on that. The offensive line, for example, has regressed in every single statistical category in regard to pass protection, run blocking, a clean pocket, pressures from a year ago. They were top 5 in some categories, top 8. Like, they were top 8 in most categories. They're like the worst. They're like at the bottom 8 of most categories now. The trickle-down effect of poor line play is going to affect you psychologically and physically. And Lamar is bearing the brunt of it physically. And the idea that people, and this is the point I'm trying to make, I've watched Coach Coleman kind of ask questions about, and I know he loves Lamar. I know he's a Lamar fan. For Jeff as a beat writer, I know it's his job to be more objective, but I've kind of watched him slowly give less objectivity and is almost, maybe because he's around it so much, it's almost like he's leaning more toward the negative and floating things that I don't think he would have floated 7 weeks ago. Like, we're literally in the same season. And so for me, I'm willing to stand 10 toes down and remember that the MVP of this season, in my opinion, is going to be Matt Stafford. Matt Stafford is 37 years old. He's 9 years older than Lamar Jackson. Aaron Rodgers won his first MVP at 27 years old. He won 3 more at age 31, 37, and 38. Are we all going to sit here and say Lamar Jackson's not going to win another MVP? Are we all going to sit here and say Lamar Jackson's not going to average 6-7 yards a carry, run for 600 or 700 yards in the next year, maybe throw 40 touchdowns? Are we all going to say that Lamar's stifled and locked in time? His peak was a year ago. Do we really believe that? I put way more blame on Coach Monken and way more blame on this offensive line than I do on Lamar. Lamar can definitely work on things. No one is above reproach. No one is above a critique. But I think we've really lost our way in regard to how we place blame and how we analyze this team now. I think people are just frustrated. The idea that people are saying that they don't want to see them play a playoff game, that is blasphemy for an athlete. I was on a team that didn't score a touchdown for 5 weeks. I watched my brother's team lose 3 games in a row at the end of a season, and we both have Super Bowl rings. What if we took that approach and said, oh, we don't want to watch them play. We just want it to end because we want a higher draft pick. That's blasphemy. That's fucking bullshit, straight up. I will never, ever, ever, ever capitulate, abdicate, bend, break, bow, ever. If I have a heartbeat and brainwaves, please believe your boy's going to show up and fight all day long. And anyone that says anything different, you ain't a fucking athlete, straight up. Sorry, Sarah.
Oh man. Well, I mean, you kind of repeated what I said, but with a different tone for sure.
Oh yeah, your boy is on one. Yeah, I'm on one. Yeah, straight up, because I've been listening to this stuff for a while now, and it's ridiculous. And this is the thing: I listen to everything. I watch every show. I'm in every chat. I hear all of it. And not just your guys' show. And by the way, your guys' show is the number 2 show of all the shows that I watch and all the content that I take in. Your guys' The Vault is number 2. Baltimore.
Number 1 in Ravens, right?
No,
Ravens
number one in Ravens for sure. But the number one thing that I watch is Sarah, I told you this, I'm into the markets and into the economy. So like the number one show that I watch, because I'm investing, right? It's my money. That's the number one thing that I watch, but this is right behind it. And what I'm saying is I watch the national media, I watch the local media, I listen to the fan, I work for 98 Rock, I work with Dennis Pitta. Like I live and breathe this 24/7. And I make it my mission. Although I wear an analyst hat, a former player's hat, and a fan's hat, and a collaborative content hat, I never want to get too far from the middle. I always want to make sure that I'm being respectful and humble about the way that I take in content and the way that I frame things based on what people think, people say, and what people do. And so I'm super sensitive. It's maniacal. It is part of my compulsion and obsession to make sure I don't drift too far from the middle on anything. And if I ever do, please believe I'm gonna be the first one to say, hey, my bad. I went too far on that. That's not correct. And I think right now the frustration and the negativity around the Ravens has gone in such a toxic place for me. I don't even know what to say. The fact that people are literally going on air and saying they don't want to watch a Ravens playoff game. Nah, man, we can't do that. So go ahead. Sorry about that, guys. But that's how I feel. And it's pent up, obviously, but that's where I'm at right now.
No, it's all well said on Lamar. I don't think either one of us are pushing back on that whatsoever. One of the things
I'm not wanting to see winning or playoff games. I'm with them on that too. Yeah.
Of course.
Yeah.
And I think we see some of that in the live chat, and I'm not sure who you're referring to in terms of on the air, who's saying that type of thing. But obviously that probably comes with a level of fatigue based on their underperformance. But as you know well, wild card teams in the past have gotten a complete clean slate and erased all of their subpar play that led up to that point and created a new season out of the month of January and into February. I grew up a Giants fan. I saw it twice.
Absolutely.
And the Ravens know a darn thing or two about that. So what you mentioned, one of the many things that you do outside of your day-to-day work is 98 Rock. And you and Dennis Pitta will get on with Kirk and Marianne from time to time throughout the season and have different levels of conversation about where the Ravens
every Monday. We shoot that every Monday, by the way. Yep.
Thank you. So Dennis Pitta, from a tight end's perspective, shared some interesting insight on Isaiah Likely. I want to get your thoughts on the other side of it. Here is that clip, courtesy of 98 Rock Baltimore.
Put some blame on Isaiah Likely. Because last week, so you talked about the Kansas City thing, and I agree. He's trying to make a play. His toe came out of bounds. There's nothing you can do about that. Last week was an issue. He was nonchalant with the football, trying to reach it across for no reason. He was going to be in the end zone. His whole body was going to finish in the end zone regardless. A completely unnecessary play. If you go back in this game to Isaiah Likely's first touchdown and you watch what he did when he caught that football, he caught it and then immediately protected it like this. And there wasn't anybody around him, but he thought maybe there might be some hands that come to shoot through late. And so you see him in a urgent situation, catching the ball and protecting it. Now, in this particular play, he reached out, caught it, and kept it. He could have done the same thing. I've watched this 100 times now. He could have easily caught it and immediately clutched it and had an additional security against his chest with both hands before the defender's hands came around his body to try to knock the ball out.
From one tight end to another, past and present there, Fem. You were there on that show. Your thoughts on his commentary. And two, as you look at Femi, as you look at Isaiah's last couple of weeks, heck of a player, right? I mean, there's a lot to like about what he's built himself back up after that foot procedure that sidelined him the first month. Yet, what's everybody going to remember? The two plays that he didn't make, Thanksgiving night and, of course, just this past weekend.
Man, the Isaiah thing is so difficult for me because I love him as a player. But he doesn't protect the football. He just doesn't. I remember the Pittsburgh game last year in Pittsburgh. He fumbled the football. I mean, he's had other fumbles too. He had a fumble, I think, against Jacksonville. I think maybe somebody recovered, I believe, for him. He is such a talent, and I understand the fandom split on wanting to keep. Well, actually, maybe more people want to keep him than wanted to keep Mark. And I understand that. And I know that sometimes you have to make a choice, but he is a big play waiting to happen anytime that he's on the field. There's no doubt. But Dennis is right. And Matt Ryan gave his analysis on Sunday about why Isaiah kept the ball away from him. There's more than one way to be effective. But if what you chose to do didn't work, it's open to scrutiny. right? That's what's going to happen. There's not one way to do something. So Dennis is correct in regard to the entirety of his analysis. And that's about as fired up as you're going to see Dennis, right? You know, I mean, he's usually pretty even keel. He was pretty irritated. That's not, you know, normally he doesn't even go that far. But I can't argue with what Dennis said. But when listening to Matt Ryan's analysis of it, and by the way, I was a tight end in college. I was a running back in high school, a tight end in college, and then a running back in the NFL. So I've played everything from slot to slot in the backfield. Like, I've done it all as well. And in that moment, it's almost like you want Isaiah to tuck it and almost just roll. Like, tuck it and get down and roll is what you would want to happen. But in that moment, I think Isaiah thinks he's got it. He's extended. And Isaiah's a big, long frame. But guess what? Joey Porter Jr. is an unusual DB, long and lanky. I played against his dad, Joey Sr., for many years. He's a very handsy, grabby DB, but he's good. You know what I mean? So it's frustrating in so many ways because I understand what Isaiah was doing, but I can't say that Dennis Pitta is incorrect. He is correct. And so the outcome is the outcome. My biggest issue with that play is that we can watch that same play in 10 different games, and 9 of those 10 were called touchdowns, right? And I think the biggest issue that I have now is that when you have two teams, and let's just call them both mediocre for right now, you want that game to be decided by both teams. But because we're frustrated with the Ravens as Ravens fans, and if this had happened on the other side to Pittsburgh, their fans would be saying the same thing. You had other opportunities to win. You could have done this different. You could have done that different. Well, no, we're not perfect. The game is flawed. And what we're hoping is that the refs are seen and not heard, and that they make sure that the game is balanced and that things are called properly and that the calls that they make or miss don't affect the outcome of the game. Whether we like it or not, qualitatively or quantitatively, their inability or lack of ability or insertion in that game had a minimum 11-point swing. Minimum. 80% of NFL games are decided by 7 points or less. So whether we like it or not, their lack of execution, and by the way, we hold every team to some standard of executing at a high level, but we're not going to hold the refs to the same standard where all of a sudden, well, they're mediocre and they had other chances. No. They're getting paid too, and they need to be more flawless than the players do. Like, they're actually there they're the timekeepers. They're the fairness keepers. It is their job to make sure that everything is balanced. And because we're frustrated with the Ravens, all of a sudden we slide or we skew our judgment on the refs. The refs are judged independently. It doesn't matter what the Ravens did. It doesn't matter what the Steelers did. They have a freaking job to do, and they did not do their job on Sunday. Bottom line. And I'll say this too. There were multiple calls, like the holding call on the final punt was nonsense as well. The holding call on Voorhees, absolutely, that was a holding call for sure. But I'm a believer of the football gods, and I believe that and I say this jokingly, obviously, but I believe that it all evens out at some point in a game. Like from first quarter to fourth quarter, I believe it evens out. That game, those calls did not even out. And those outcomes by those refs and their performance in that game will have a franchise effect long-term potentially on where the Ravens end up and where the Steelers end up. And now the game is over and it's done, but I heard Jeff talk about it. I heard Coach Coleman talk about it. I've heard other people talk about it. In some way, they hold the Ravens play accountable, but they don't hold the refs as accountable as they hold the Ravens, when in reality, everyone needs to be held equally accountable. It's not that, oh, well, this isn't as bad as that, so we're not going to look at it. No. We critique all things at all times, regardless of degree of performance. Everything gets critiqued. Everything gets judged, and everything matters. I want to make sure we say that about the refs. They had their imprint on that game in a very unfair way. And yes, it did not. I was pissed off about that too. Clearly,
we already know. You know what I mean? We already know I was. I've yelled enough on the show about that. But I just want to add to your point where you said you actually expect the refs to perform better than the players. I'm with you because they have replay. They can stop. They literally. There's been so many times in my life I'm like, man, I wish I could just hit pause on time, because I don't have enough time to get everything that I want done and to do it at a high level. The refs and the replay actually get to pause time and relook at things and rethink about it. Whereas the players and coaches, everything's on a clock. Everything's on a clock. You got to move. Everything's bang, bang. It was the NFL replay that messed it up. Not even the refs on the field with their eyes. It was the replay.
Yes, it was headquarters.
And had cameras. Yes.
It was headquarters. So the issue, exactly, it was New York. The issue for me is that if that's not a touchdown, then they need to go change that rule, because everywhere else, that's a touchdown everywhere else. And Zay Flowers made the exact same catch against the Rams either last year or the year before, and they called it a touchdown. Mm-hmm. I watched the same play in another game last week, and they called it a touchdown. So if that rule is, if they're playing to the letter of the rule, then that rule absolutely needs to be changed. You get 2 feet down, you make a football move, you're in the end zone. There's nothing else to do at that point. Anyway, we won't beat that anymore. I think we all agree that that's nonsensical and it needs to be dealt with.
And that brings us to one final topic here before we get you on out of here, because after 1-5, as you know, I deemed this team cooked at the time based on what I was watching, based on what I knew was upcoming, and based on a lot of uncertainty about the 3 phases. Since then, I'm not sure they've played a complimentary football game. They were able to rip off 5 straight wins. They're now squarely involved in maybe not controlling their own destiny anymore, as they did a week ago leading into Ravens Steelers, but they're still mathematically very much in it. And we know how much things can change with this AFC playoff picture. If there are 2 things that are in the Ravens' favor right now, it's 1, how wide open this AFC is, and 2, as Sarah said this week, can Lamar at some point once again don that Superman cape? Those 2 things right now, if I'm a Ravens fan, are what I'm hanging my hat on. You've taken some issue with, you let me know. You wanted to comment on that statement from 2 months ago and tell me why I was wrong.
Well, this is the thing. You referenced me on Monday that I've been quiet. I've been anything but quiet. I'm sending you guys messages, which you may or may not respond to. I'm in every chat.
Well, let me interject real quick. Let me interject just to be clear on what I meant by that. On the statement, I know you never miss anything. I'm talking about on the Cook statement. We hadn't discussed it.
Yeah. But no, but it's the way you challenged me when I'm not there that bothered me. It wasn't. I'm gonna get into it. Don't worry. My point is this. Oh yeah, we are here now. But the point is, by definition, you weren't right when they were cooked, because we're still talking about them right now. They actually. Let me give you an example of another use case and metaphor. There's a bull and bear case in the stock market, right? You have these people that are consummate bears, right? That they just think the market's always going to go down. And eventually the market does go down. But before it goes down, it has 3 all-time highs, but then eventually goes down. And what do? They go, oh, I was right. I go, well, no, but there was 3 all-time highs in there and people made money still. And my point is with the Ravens is you said they were cooked when they were 1-5. And I said, no, they're not cooked. They actually got to first place. They were 6-5. They actually had a higher than 50% chance of winning the division. Last week, they still were in first place. They're 1 game out right now. They are not cooked. The fact that they still have a chance to win the division, by definition, means that they're not cooked. You made a binary statement. I actually told you what their record was going to be. I said after Thanksgiving, this is the one thing I got wrong. I said that Cincinnati, Baltimore, and Pittsburgh would all be somewhere between 5-7 and 7-5. You can go look at the receipts. I absolutely said this. You never were willing to project a record. You said you made many statements about, oh, I'm not ready to say that. I'm not ready to do this. I'm not ready to do that. You made one binary statement without nuance. You said they were cooked. The fact that we're still talking about them today means that they're not cooked. The fact that they still, no, you can hold on. You can shake your head all you want. You're on the microphone every single day. And what ends up happening is you move the goalposts a tiny bit every day so you can be right. Your statement when they were 1-5 and my statement, I'm winning right now. They are still alive. They are still alive.
I'll stop you there, Fem, because, okay, it was pretty clear. I said they are cooked at the time from a postseason contention standpoint. But what did I say after that? They're going to make it interesting. That's exactly what they've done. They've kept themselves in it from an interesting standpoint. They're still in it. I still have to stand by my statement, though.
The bottom line is, to me, is you made a very aggressive statement about being cooked. The way that I interpret that statement at the time is what we're talking about right now. You've made a million statements since then. I'm not on the air every day. I'm not here to debate every day. I'm not part of that discussion. They are not cooked, because the fact that they are not cooked is the fact that we're still talking about them. And I hear what you're saying.
Confidently tell me they're not cooked.
They're not cooked. What? Are you serious? How can I? The fact that,
bro, I'm talking about over a 17-game, 18-week span, a month from now. That's what I'm looking at when I said that 2 months ago. How can we both sit here and say the answer is not out there yet?
Exactly. I agree with that. Actually, I was going to say that next. The bottom line is you may end up being right that they aren't going to make the playoffs, right? But my point is that when you and I first had this discussion, I made more statements in that one clip about where they're going how they're going to get there, what their record's going to be, and how they're going to do it than you have since then. All you've done is say, oh, they're still alive. I may have to change my statement. I gave numbers. I gave data. I gave statistics. I projected. I took risk. I put myself out there. You still haven't done that. All you've done. Let me finish. The only thing that you've done so far is that each time you say, oh, I'm not going to take a victory lap. You've made that statement on this show. You've made that statement on your show. You want to take a victory lap because you feel like what your prediction is going to end up being right. My point is that my prediction was nuanced. I actually made predictions about how this is going to go. I was the one who told you about Kalshi. You opened up Kalshi. You're like, what? They have a 60% chance of winning the division still? I'm like, yeah. I see what Kalshi sees.
How's Kalshi?
No, it's gone down right now. It's gone down right now. Absolutely agree with that. My point that I made about the market is the bear and bull case, where you may end up ultimately being right. What I'm saying is how we get there matters. The nuance matters. They're not done yet. I'll tell you exactly what I said. I said they're going to be 10-7. They're going to win the division and be a playoff team. My prediction right now is not looking great. But my point is, when they were 1-5, when nobody was willing to say it, I was willing to say they're going to win the division still. I knew they would go on a run. I knew they would be in contention. They're still in contention. They're not out of it yet. When they were 1-5, everybody was bearing them. Everybody had RIP on the tombstone. Nobody wanted to say anything about them getting back in first place. I saw where it was going. It went where I said it would. Now, they had to win these last 2 games, and they didn't. That's where my prediction takes a massive hit, is these last 2 weeks. And you're right. You may end up being right in the end, but the how we got there, to me, is what matters.
Sarah, get on in here. The last thing I'll say is the victory lap is obviously all in good fun. There's no true victory lap to be taken. I don't sit here and lose sleep over losing this potential argument in a month from now, and I don't think you will either, Fem, if you end up losing the argument. I'm air quoting that for the audio-only audience. The bottom line is there was a cushy meat portion part of their schedule that was very favorable for them. They took advantage of it. And now they put themselves in a position where their backs are against the wall. They have to win this upcoming weekend, and we'll revisit this discussion about cooked or not cooked, I'm sure, in the next few weeks.
Yep. Sarah, go for it. Sorry.
I just want to do one last thing because you did have this in our text. And I know we do got to get out of here, so maybe in 2 minutes, Fem.
Yep.
I do want to get your opinion on this. The culpability for current offensive play decline, where do you want to put the fault?
I put a lot of it on the offensive line. And who's to blame for the offensive line? Is it Coach Warhop? Is it Coach Harbaugh? Is it Coach Monken? The way that I know we don't have time to say again?
Is it EDC?
Yeah, EDC has some blame too. But the bottom line is that 4 of these 5 linemen are the same. And I told you the statistics on their performance last year. They were between top 5 and top 8 in every single offensive category for blocking last year. They are in none of those categories now. So I understand from some perspective why they kept this line together, because they played pretty well. And technically, you should see people trending upward at this age, not trending downward. But for whatever reason, they're trending downward. I do put more, and Bobby, I don't want to put words in your mouth about this because I'm not sure where you are today, because I feel like you've been more objective and more open to Coach Monken taking more responsibility. I put a ton of responsibility on Coach Monken. There's a massive disconnect between his play calling, his use of personnel, the lack of creativity, the predictability, all these different things I put on him. I mean, he had one of the most prolific offenses in NFL history a year ago, and all of a sudden now it's not that great. But when the line doesn't play well, you don't have a lot of tricks in your bag. It's like, what do I even call? Like, these dudes can't, they can't block the sun with their eyes, as Unk said, right? My teammate, right? Like, you know what I mean? Like, and he's wild, by the way. So like, I understand. Yeah, I understand where Coach Monken is a little bit feels like he's probably playing with one hand a little bit, and then Lamar is injured. So I know all these things are snowballed, but like, the way that I look at it is, I'm a player, so I'm going to put the O-line, like, their play is on them for me first, and then I'm going to put Coach Warhop and then Coach Monken right underneath that. I don't know what order, and then I'm going to put probably Coach Harbaugh and then EDC last. That's the order that I would put it in. I hope that makes sense. I don't know if it does, but I'm as frustrated as anybody, but I won't let that frustration allow me to do or say some of the things that I hear, which I've already gone over. I won't go over again, but that's where I'm at on it.
Gotcha.
All right,
so
for timing purposes,
O-line, Coach Monken, then Harbs. then Harbs and EDC.
O-line, Coach Munkin and Coach Warhop, I put about the same, and then Coach Harbaugh and then EDC.
Okay, got it.
We could go another 90 plus on this, but
yeah,
for timing purposes, we got to go. You're the man. We appreciate you. It's always spirited. I hope nobody ever
confuses
that with anything.
No.
Spirited debate, baby. That's what it is.
Hey, I'll say, give me 5 seconds. Hey, people out there, everybody. What you guys don't know how much I talk to Sarah and Bobby. Bobby's a little brother to me. Sarah's like a sister to me for sure. Like, I love them both. They're outstanding. But like, I'm that consummate person. I'm gonna get down and get in it. Like, I don't care who it is. You can be my son. You can be my mom. It doesn't matter. Like, we about to go. If it goes down, it goes down. And then we're gonna hug it out afterward. It's all good. Like, I'm just a passionate, crazy person. It's just who I am.
Hey, and just in case people think that I can't do it when you're on here, I'll be seeing you next time for the next argument. All right, we look forward to it.
Definitely.
Versus
all love.
Because people are like, "Wait, you talking to him when he's not on the show?" No, come on. I got the utmost respect for a Super Bowl winning Raven and somebody that.
No. This is all good. No, Bobby, you have a cachet with me that like you can tell me anything. Like all the time that we've spent coffees and walks and on the phone and in our dude. Like people don't realize that we're close and like. I'm talking to you like as if we're one-on-one and everyone's getting to watch it. Like that's what this is. So it's all love. I hope they all realize that. Yeah.
You and I just talked for an hour the other day.
I know we did. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, no. There's nothing but love here. It's like family having a discussion, but everybody gets to watch it. That's what this is.
Yep.
Thanks for always looking out, man. We appreciate
you. Guys. Take care. Peace. Yeah.
There he goes. Former Super Bowl winning Raven, Femi Ayambadejo, kind enough to spend a few minutes with us, and we always appreciate some good spirit.
I didn't want to tip the scales either way because, I've already fought with you enough. I figured you two could duel it out. I didn't want to tip the scales.
Felt good. Felt like it was Acho and Sarah just reverse.
Yeah.
I kind of sat back and mediated that discussion, that was from after the MVP race and whatnot. But but no, that was good.
I think his biggest issue is just basically like you may end up being correct that they don't make the playoffs, but he's saying that you didn't really know. You kind of put it out there, but did you really put out how that was going to go down? And so he's like, so you might end up being right, but like he almost, and I guess I should have said this when he was on here. I just wonder if you, in his view, is it like, well, a broken clock is right twice. So you might be right, but did you know how it was going to go down? I think that's his view on it.
Which is funny. And it just was not enough time to get into the nuance of it, but I felt like I actually did at the time share in the days that followed once that statement was on the record, which I still am obviously on the record for it. I started to piece together a lot of reasons as to why I felt that might be the case, a lot of which was due to, at the time, uncertainty around Lamar's availability, the strength of schedule down the second half stretch once they got out of that 5-week favorable period of the meat part of their schedule, or I should say the middle part of their schedule. And then you can go on and on. The trade deadline hadn't happened. I wasn't sure what they were going to do with pass rush. Now you bring in Draymond Jones, and he was good for a couple of weeks right after the acquisition, but he and Mike have quieted since. So
that is his point, though. That's why you said that you were moving goalposts, because you just said like within the days after you pieced it together, and like that was his point. Is it's like when you used the Cook comment. It was, what was it after? There was some sort of like drama. What was the drama that had blown up? There was some, I think it might've been a report. Was it one of the reports?
Probably. It was, we'll have to go back and look at the date.
But the point is like, we didn't know about the trades and we didn't know about the injuries. We didn't know how long Lamar was going to be injured. We didn't know all this stuff. So that's why he's saying in that conversation, you didn't know how it was going to go down. Like you more reacted to, what was the drama at the time? There was like major drama that happened over the weekend. It was it was something with Lamar. And so like there was like drama and you had fed into the drama. If we knew that Lamar was going to be injured this long and all this, then any of us could have said the Ravens are cooked. And I guess that's kind of his point, that you may end up being ultimately right, but not for the reason that you first said it, I think is his point.
He's entitled to it.
Yeah.
So
anyway,
the bigger picture is that this team, as Marlon Humphrey said, has yet to play a complimentary football game for 4 quarters. Mm-hmm. And we are in middle of December. And that might be the biggest, we can talk about Lamar's setbacks. We can talk about the degree of difficulty over the next 4 weeks. We can talk about special teams issues. We can talk about, going on the road to frozen Lambeau Field and all this. but the fact that they have yet to play a fully complete game of complimentary football, maybe I guess there's a reason for positivity there, saying maybe they're still capable of putting it all together. But I think there's enough of a hefty sample size that begs to differ.
The chat is saying the chat is saying this is not a super chat, but the chat is saying that you said that comment when they were saying the players were still shocked after losing to Buffalo weeks earlier. That's what, I remember it being something like that, because you were talking about it mentally.
That's good recall from everybody.
Yeah. So anyway, super chats.
Yeah, let's do it. And then we'll have to talk about the signings here and kind of kick this thing into high gear. Captain writes, I think we had this up there. So Chef Trez says, it's crazy how Femi has more fight and bark than our offensive line. LOL. Chef. Dark Thunder 35 is here.
Femi did not like those regress comments or the comments of, I don't want to go to the playoffs. Dark Thunder says, likely being loose with the ball and Zay always jump cutting backwards is proof of bad coaching. Where's the discipline? I don't think that's proof of bad coaching. I mean, Jeff on your show last night said he sat there and watched the Ravens constantly harping, drills, stats, talking, like everything you can do to coach somebody not to turn the ball over. And they turned the ball over a ton.
Yeah.
So
how about
I'm sure there's
tighten it up.
Like John Harbaugh said, no, that's not how you're supposed to catch it. And you teach them how to catch it. So again, I don't know how you, there's plenty of things to criticize John Harbaugh. I just said, for me, the time has run out if the Ravens don't go on some miraculous run. So there's plenty to criticize John about, but those are not the two things. You can be coached to do something and not do it as a player.
Just in case Dark Thunder missed it.
Likely touchdown, or the one that was called not a touchdown. Were you fine with how he caught? Is that how you guys want him to catch the ball in that situation, trying to keep it out, considering the defender is right there behind him?
No.
Yeah.
And that is that. Simple in one word. Rave says, bro likely showed up when Mark didn't. Mark won for 9 years. Brew likely showed up when Mark didn't.
So Isaiah likely showed up when Mark didn't.
He's probably talking about the postseason. Isaiah's had a more effective postseason resume than Mark has to date, which is true. Adit says, and this is huge news that just dropped in baseball. The Orioles made their first true legitimate splash in the Mike Elias, David Rubenstein era. Pete Alonso is coming to Baltimore for 5 years, $155 million. So the winter meetings are going on literally as we speak in Major League Baseball, and that is a big splash for those of you that love the Orioles. Quincy says that replay was done in Vegas, not in New York. Oh, I'm glad we didn't read that aloud.
No, you would have set Femi off again.
Tanner's here.
And I also don't think it was in Vegas. I know he's being funny, but just put it out there. Tanner says, tell Hancock to calm down and open his eyes. We cooked.
Chef says, Sarah's trying her best not to laugh as Femi filleted, to use Unk's term, Bobby braggadocious. LOL.
What's funny is I forgot my popcorn. I told you I was going to bring popcorn because I knew he was going to come at you like I said. I just talked to him for an hour earlier this week. I knew he was going to come at you. I forgot my popcorn.
Yeah, you did. I'm shocked you did. You never get a chance. You never miss a chance for some entertainment. Dan H writes, how do they overturn both calls when they claim to have a, quote, clear and obvious standard to reverse calls on the field? Also, I think they win by just removing the personal foul on the field goal alone.
You're going down for a field goal for the final drive instead of a touchdown. So maybe.
Yeah.
Maybe
you got to bow up in the red zone, but
and then remember Bobby, when the Ravens went for it on 4th, and I think you even said, should they have gone for 3? They probably would have gone for 3 instead of going for 4.
Sure.
There,
sure.
You know what I mean? So then you would have even needed maybe. Yeah, I mean, it would just made the game tighter for sure.
Yeah, the nuance would have been different, no doubt. Yeah. Ty Riggs says, hold up, Bobby. Oh, hold up. Bobby ain't a fan. Respect his outside view. Thank you, Ty. Edwin is here, who had a great call yesterday. This one's for you.
So this is for your personal channel. He called in. Okay. He said, Bobby, great talking with you yesterday. Anything can happen. AFC is that much up in the air. I will say, if we lose the Bengals Sunday, we're likely cooked because Steelers' schedule is friendlier than ours going forward.
He was great. Edwin was. And I think, like you said earlier this week, Sarah, there's two things, and I'll add on to the one that you mentioned was what you're hanging your hat on. Any given moment, any given snap, every given game, Lamar's Superman like Lamar, MVP like Lamar could return. And the fact that that could be coupled with a wide open AFC that is still not necessarily up for grabs, or let's say this, the Ravens don't control their own destiny anymore the way they did a week ago. But if you win out, particularly the ones that are AFC North between at Cincinnati and the Pittsburgh regular season finale, and you get a little bit of help, this could still fall their way with the January berth. Row Live says, so Femi has the guy who chooses who plays on the line and the guy who put this line together at the bottom? Oh, boy. Yeah, we didn't have a chance to get into more of that in terms of the blame game.
I think it might be because, and this goes back to what Jeff said on the collective last night. Jeff said, even if you talk to people like players in the locker room, he said that he's not found anybody inside that said, oh, yeah, we're not playing our best five. So I think that's why people are like, still doesn't matter though. EDC. I mean, Femi said he's like, but they played well at the end of last season, so there was reason to bet on like Daniel Fa'alele, I guess is their view. I don't know, not me. I feel like he should have had a better backup signing than Ben Cleveland.
Yeah,
he knew that situation. I don't think he can be. By the way, Bobby, the Ravens still kind of do control their own destiny. I just put it in the playoff simulator. If they won out, they have a greater than 99% chance of making the playoffs.
Well, I guess what I mean by that is
so they do still control their own destiny.
To the way that it was last week, though, it relates to the AFC North. Now, when you let me know, confirm this for me.
Well, actually,
when you plug that in, you're talking about for the postseason, not the division, correct?
I put in the Ravens went out, and it gave me a 99% chance that they'll make the playoffs. But that's not putting in what the Steelers do. So with that scenario where the Ravens went out, I put Steelers beat the Dolphins. Ravens are still 99%. Then if I put Steelers, where's the Steelers on this one? Steelers beat the Lions. Ravens are still at 99%. Steelers beat the Browns. Ravens are still at 99%. And then because I say if the Ravens went out, then obviously the Steelers lose the last game. So yeah, if the Ravens went out, they're still in the playoffs.
So
no matter what the Steelers do between their rematch. Between now and their rematch.
AFC. I wonder if that's just into the postseason. That's not the AFC North.
That's winning the AFC North. They would they would host a wild card game in that scenario.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, then I guess what I mean by that,
because they wouldn't get in through because if they got in any other way, they wouldn't host the wild card. They'd have to win the AFC North to host the wild card.
I guess what I should rephrase that to then is there would have been more margin of error with a win last week.
Yes.
In the closing 4 weeks.
Right. Because to expect the Ravens to, again, I mean, I guess if Lamar could really, really, really be Superman, but to expect the team to transition from what we saw the last 2 weeks to be able to beat the Bengals, Patriots, Packers, and Steelers, that's a miracle turnaround.
Right. Yeah. Only one of which are at home. And I shouldn't even say that because guess what? M&T Bank Stadium's not been at M&T.
He's not doing anything for him.
Nope.
It doesn't matter.
And if you guys missed that from earlier in the week, it'll be the first time since 2015 that this team finishes below 500 at home.
What is the game at home? Because Bengals and Steelers are away. Which is Patriots, Packers? Oh, Patriots are the last home game?
Patriots. Yeah.
Dang.
That's it. Azrael, I always botch this. Azrael's Pet Nation. Maybe I botched on purpose because he's always after me. Just kidding. AZ, appreciate you. Dark Thunder 35 says Harbaugh hired Warhop, continues to play 72 and 77, and the same issues of offense going stale no matter the offensive coordinator. He shoulders all the blame. Maddie Boom is with us today.
Maddie says Femi is looking short term. If we win the division, we will repeat, get bounced, and have a first round pick. That's not a needle mover. We are stuck and cooked. Well, I mean, maybe, but if they win the division, like I said, a good chance is because they beat the Patriots and the Packers and the Steelers and the Bengals. Patriots obviously being the second best team in the AFC. So if the Ravens somehow beat those teams, then of course you have belief that they could be more than one and done in the playoffs.
You got to essentially play two teams over the next 4 weeks that both have legitimate shots to be the respective number 1 seeds in their conferences.
Yes.
That's what's coming up. And oh, by the way, the other 2 opponents, divisional opponents.
Right.
So that's where things stand right now. Dan H017 says down 1 on the late drive instead of 5. They definitely kick on 4th down. Penalty gave Pittsburgh 4 points. Some of the in-game nuance that we were discussing as it relates to officiating.
Mm-hmm.
And Dreams is here.
Dream says 36-year-old Von Miller has 6 sacks. SMH.
Yeah, and just to be clear, this team has 19 overall. The Ravens do. That's collectively. Leading the way is Mike Green at 2.5. And a guy who's in second, tied for second, hasn't played in 2 months. It's just, I know sacks aren't everything, but that's just pitiful.
No.
It's pitiful.
I mean, you could look up the pressure rate. You could look up the quarterback hits. You could look up it's all of it.
It's pitiful. It's absolutely pitiful. All right, let's get into somebody who we thought was going to help in that category, Sarah.
Yes.
And he's going to have to be helping somewhere else because it's not in Baltimore anymore. Carl Lawson has been released from the Ravens practice squad. He was brought in a couple months ago, as you guys might remember. He was available as a free agent edge rusher, or pass rusher. He spent last year in Dallas and played just 1 game for the Ravens, which was on Thanksgiving night. So he is out, and in comes Lawson Tomlinson. As you see here, the Ravens made this official yesterday. Lawson has been signed to the team's practice squad. He's a former first-round pick back in 2015 by Detroit. What you really should care about is that he played for the Texans 7 games this year. And Sarah, in a second here, after I get your reaction, I'll share one of my Texan sources who covers the team on a daily basis, his thoughts. You're not going to like it, which is why we refer to it as an underwhelming signing by Eric DeCosta. But your thoughts on some roster shuffling, including Carl Lawson's tweet here, answering Ramey's really hypothetical. I'll let you take that in Twitter that we have screenshot.
Well, I guess first of all, with the guard signing, I know initially everybody was like, ooh, guard. Oh, and he started this year. Daniel Fa'alele's out. That is definitely not what's going on here. I think this is more a reaction to Ben Cleveland right here, as we know, has been suspended. So they need more guard play. They need bodies at practice. They need backup help, all that kind of stuff. So I think it's more a reaction to Ben Cleveland finally getting his suspension. I think that, I don't know. I get re-energized every time I see Daniel Fa'alele play, and I get re-energized every time I see him whiff, and then Lamar Jackson's running for his life or he's hit to the ground. But then I get to days like today on a Wednesday where I'm like in acceptance that this is the starting 5. So like it's just a roller coaster for sure. As for Carl Lawson, he never really did anything. Was he ever activated? I think he was activated once.
Just one game Thanksgiving night.
But I don't think he played, correct?
No, he played.
Snaps? He did. Okay. So he got some snaps, but Ramey on Twitter, quote retweeted the news of Carl Lawson being let go. He says Carl Lawson genuinely had to be putting out some of the worst practices known to man, given that the Ravens have, as you just pointed out, absolutely no pass rush. Carl Lawson quote retweeted Ramey and said, nope, not at all. Quite the opposite. Some of the best, actually. Some of his best practice video, he says. Organization needed to do what was best for them. Roster dynamics, still a great place. Thankful for the opportunity. So he stands up for himself. He also shows gratitude to the Ravens. So good way for Carl Lawson to go out. But yeah, it's got to be pretty bad if you can't get in when Mike Green has 2.5 sacks and is leading the team through 15 weeks.
Classy response from Carl. If you guys are standing up right now or on a treadmill or walking your dog, you're going to want to sit down. Here's my Texan source on Lawson Tomlinson.
Okay, here we go.
Nobody hold their breath on this one. He's definitely not a starting caliber guard anymore. Not really a backup caliber guy either. Began the year as the only unquestioned starter on Houston's offensive line. Was bad. Rotated in games with the last guy to make the roster along the line. Then got benched. Then got back to rotating. Then got benched again as they stopped the rotation and tried the backup center at left guard. He was inactive the final 2 games when they had another new starter at left guard and Scruggs to back up. He ain't got it anymore. Nice guy, good teammate, no longer a professional football player.
Okay.
So again, this could very well be, like you just mentioned, a Ben Cleveland insurance policy for the next 3 weeks. because Ben is down, as you mentioned. He's serving his 3-game suspension without pay. So it's unfortunately not anything to write home about. Roster shuffling. Carl Lawson ends up being on the wrong end of it.
There you go. And speaking of Ben Cleveland, over on Instagram, Carnell, I'm forgetting his last name. A couple players follow him. Fun account to follow. And anyway, he put up a tweet about Daniel Fa'alele, the play that we've already looked at several times, where he gets beat by a defensive back and lets Lamar get sacked. And Carnell writes, I ain't gonna lie. He needs to be studied. Meaning Daniel Fa'alele needs to be studied. He definitely got LJ sacked on this play. And then Ben Cleveland liked that post. And lots of people noticed. So I'll just say this. I'm also mad at Ben Cleveland. Okay? Ben, if you can't beat out Daniel Fa'alele, like if you can't make this, I mean, if this is like one of those things where like John Harbaugh's like, oh, they're about the same, I'm going to go with Daniel because Ben doesn't practice harder or whatever. Like, I'm mad at Ben making this an issue. Like, why? Why haven't you beaten him out? Why haven't you made this an open door case closed? Like where Ronnie's like, it should be Ben, and Linderbaum should say it should be Ben, and all the players. And instead, they're telling Jeff as Jeff goes around and asks, hey, is somebody better? And everybody, all the players telling Jeff, no, we're using the best 5. Ben, why haven't you won the job? Don't come out here liking posts about it. Go out there and win the job. Is there like, oh, I'm upset with the whole situation. I don't like seeing Daniel out there, and I'm mad. I'm mad that Ben hasn't gone in and just grabbed this job and said it's mine. He should be able to do that instead of liking posts like this.
Yeah. There you go.
Now I'm starting to get to Femi levels here.
No, you deserve to be. Another quick hit from you.
Oh, just the Zay Flowers. Zach put this out over on Twitter. Zay is literally our whole passing game. So Zay's at 191 yards with 4 games left. Plenty of opportunity to break 1,000 again. He's got 191, but only 1 touchdown. Should have had 2. Mark Andrews is second at 341. More than 500 yards difference.
And just for the audio-only audience, that's 891 for Zay.
What did I say?
Don't be shortchanging that man at 191.
Oh, my bad. 891. I was looking at that 1 touchdown. 891, then 341, 500 yards difference. Then D-Hop, 257. Likely he's been injured a bit. 248. And then Bateman, the fall off, 217 and only 2 touchdowns. Didn't he have double-digit touchdowns last year?
Rashad
9
had
or 10?
9. He had 9
so
last year, which
if you add in the playoffs.
Tripled. Yep,
Yeah.
It more than tripled his previous years combined. He has missed a couple games. Obviously, Lamar missed a few of the games that he was available, but still, it's a bummer. It's a big bummer. And there are several drops in there as well from him, including the one that we all know on 3rd down.
Yep.
Changed the game, helped change the game on Sunday.
Yep. Finally, Kyle Van Noy is one of the Art Rooney Sportsmanship Award finalists. So he, along with, there are 4 finalists from each conference. So I'm sure Kyle would love to win that award. Sure, he'd like to have more success on the field too, but little love to him for being there. And then also, why not end on a happier note? The Ravens are, it's that time of the year where the Ravens do their Holiday Helpers event, which is always, I don't know why, special to me. I had a really good friend when I was working at the Ravens. She was working in community relations, and this was her idea. And she got it going. Melanie LeGrand.
There's Draymond.
There's Draymond. And it's just a great activity. I remember going to several of these while I was working there to help support her and the Ravens. And each player goes off with 1 kid, and they get to fill up their carts for Christmas. And it's paid for by the Ravens. I don't know how much. Each year, a different player kind of heads it up. So they showed Roquan first. I don't know who the person that's heading it up, but it's a players foundation puts a lot of money behind it. I think the Ravens put a lot of money behind it to try to help give these kids a good Christmas season. And it's just fun. It's fun to see these kids with players going through, and some players are more fun than others. Like some of the players really get into it. trying to like help decide like what sizes to buy if you're getting clothes, what's the best games, like what's the best everything. So just good to see all these players. Look at that. Look, it's just fun for these kids and these players to get together and do this. It's just nice to see, despite the last 2 losses, these guys still got to go out and help out in the community, and they're doing just that.
Jake Hummel, Roger Rosengarten, Mike Green, Teddy Buchanan. I'm just trying to list off as many as I've seen in the it's always great to see these superhumans physically in targets, and with kids, it's great for the audio only audience. Definitely go check that out on Ravens platforms. There's Keaton. Look at Keaton. Nice
And
work.
knee isn't going to stop Keaton from shopping with these kids.
Attaboy.
Hopefully it doesn't stop him from playing in the Bengals game either.
And hopefully we'll have him on in the offseason to get him back inside the vault. Dark Angel 225 finishes things up for us in Mexican currency, and he says the real biggest loss for the Ravens is the late Joe D, former offensive line coach. Ain't that the truth? Hard to measure the impact there, but no question, Sarah. He was revered in his industry. So best wishes to the D'Ala Sanders family this holiday season. I'm sure he's extremely missed by everybody in that organization for sure. Anything else?
I don't think so. Nope, nothing for me.
All right, sounds good. We'll be back tomorrow. The two of us will be Thursday at 12 noon Eastern, as always, for a Ravens Lunch Hour live stream. We'll start to turn a page to the rematch. Lot rides on Ravens Bengals in Cincinnati coming up on Sunday. And yes, Solo Dolo, I will be live later on. Press conferences begin in an hour from now. Practice is probably underway as we speak, so there'll be a lot to discuss coming up later this week in the second half. So for Sarah Ellison, I'm Bobby Trossett. Special thanks to Femi for dropping by the program today. And a special thanks to Primary Residential Mortgage for continuing to support the show as well. You guys want to throw yourself into that $100 Fanatics gift giveaway? Go visit the show notes, and it'll take you over to their Instagram account.
6,300 concurrents, Bobby. Woo!
Yeah, how about
on a Wednesday afternoon. 6,300 of y'all are here.
How about it? Yeah. Showing up and out and on a Wednesday. So yeah, no doubt, never is ever lost on us the fact that you guys are here. And just on our way out, not the best news ever, but also not surprising. Lamar is not practicing according to the beat community, nor is Cheeto Awuzie. So to begin week 15 on a Wednesday, much as he's done in recent weeks, Sarah, no Lamar, no Cheeto. And that's what's going on there at One Winning Drive. So we'll have more on it, depending on the messaging surrounding it, coming up tomorrow. Vaultrons, we appreciate you. I'll catch up with you later this afternoon. And if not, we'll see you in the vault tomorrow.